So in the end, I think that talk is cheap, and here I am talking about how cheap talk is, because number one, who created us? Do you know? Number two, not only who created us, where do we come from? And I don't mean physically from the womb, from the woman. Where are we going after the physical body dies? Do you know? Number three, if there is a so-called purpose to this existence, okay, and if we have any real measure of free will, which we believe we have because it feels that way, like I decided to do this talk right now, or I thought I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. What do I want to eat? I'll eat this rather than that because I have a choice, and so on. We call this free will. But really, if there's actual free will, like the circumstance that I'm in right now is allowing me to sit here with this iPhone, which I own, in this place and do this talk, I might call this free will. But if there's actually free will that put me here and that is giving me this opportunity to speak with this YouTube community, which I actually have no control over and have no clue who's watching or not watching or where they are or who you are. Let me go back to number three. If there's actually free will, purpose, what is the purpose of our existence individually and collectively? None of us can answer any of these questions, including me, obviously. So all the theories we have and our religions and our science, which is our religion in a way, we can test things in the physical world and we can prove theorems, we can also disprove them. And sometimes theories or theorems are disproved 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 or more years later. And things are changing and flowing and changing and flowing, and that's the impermanence of Buddhist philosophy and whatever you call it. Talk is cheap. Even the phrase talk is cheap is loaded with assumptions and meanings. What does cheap mean? Are we talking about money, capitalism? Are we talking about what is cheap? What is value? What gives what value? Who and what has value? The dollar has value because we give it value, even though it's just a piece of paper that doesn't really have value. And so nothing has value unless we give it value, not just in a capitalistic money system, but in any sense, right? Yet we feel as humans that this has value, that doesn't have value, and it could be subjective and different for all of us. And whatever anyone says about this, that, or the other, there's going to be someone else who thinks or feels differently about it and disagrees and can prove his or her own version, at least to himself or herself, and possibly to others. If others around agree with him or her, then look, others agree, so it must be true. You see, right? Or then you have factions and you have red versus blue, white versus black, and etc. And you have nations and you have the whole thing. So it's all bullshit. Basically, it's all chaos, to use a word to represent that which is beyond our ability to understand why those things happen, or we call it chaos. It may have order. Some things we call order may be actually pure chaos at the core, that we've created a false order around it. And actually, by trying to create false order in society and so on, we've made a worse hell and chaos of things. Sometimes it's brilliant and fun and interesting, and it's like watching a play or a movie. It may be fun for those who hold the key, the power, who have the magic formula, the control, the influence, who are influencers in the greatest sense, with the capital I, if you will. Again, what that represents. It's all bullshit. There isn't a point. And yet the point is that there isn't a point. And so we create, that's existentialism 101. Of course, we create our own meaning, but ultimately, none of us knows. So the Buddhists say, or the ancient Hindus say, or whatever philosophy says, just live and just let go a little bit. You don't really have free will as much as you think you do. You can play the game and make the decisions you make, but a lot of those decisions actually really aren't logical, and a lot of what we believe isn't logical, and that's why we're so easy to manipulate via social media. And now AI is coming, and those who created it know exactly what they're doing. And if you use it, be my guest. It's your funeral, but then it's all of our funerals. You know, it's like every single novel I've read that I've said, yeah, that's it. Or every single philosopher I've listened to and I've said, yeah, that's it. There's always been another something that I'll later listen to, hear, read, and it will hit me in a different way from another direction. Say, wait, but this is possible too. And this contradicts that. Even though that made perfect sense, this also makes perfect sense. How can that be? Contradiction. How many truths are there? And how many untruths are there? Is there any real meaning? Is there any truth with a capital T? And if there's not, then what are we, and what is this? And how can any of us be convinced of anything that we think or feel or see, even see with our own eyes? Because we know that's deceptive, because we don't see things with our eyes. We only see what we are able to see. It's like a collective hallucination, huh? If you were an insect, you would see something completely different. If you're colorblind, you don't know what the color purple looks like, or red, or whatever. And if you're born deaf, you don't know what a symphony sounds like. You may feel the vibrations. You may even see colors instead of hearing the sound. That's not a shared reality for most. But the majority thinks that we're correct because we can agree with one another, that this is reality. It's all bullshit. I realize, these YouTube videos, I sometimes get caught in this spiral and I send them to people. Look, hey, listen, this is great. And then if I'm like midway through it and I send it to someone, midway out, the person will say something I completely don't agree with and would have a counter argument for, if you will. And then I'm like, oh damn, I shouldn't have sent that because I don't agree with this. And then I have to send another comment. I don't agree with everything. And then I thought to myself, it's all bullshit. It's all subjective. It's all right. But we have to have some basis for survival. And we have to have some point of agreement where we can create some meaning for ourselves and for others and not just go around, killing each other, although that's kind of what's happening, although it's via manipulation. And many of us don't realize we're being manipulated because we're believing this or that narrative. Narratives are just narratives. They're not truth. And maybe there is no truth, ultimately. So where does that leave us? And goes back to points 1, 2, and 3, that we know nothing about where we come from, where we go to, what our purpose is, whether we actually have actual free will in the sense that we like to believe we do, especially from the Western philosophical, I think, therefore I am, Cartesian philosophical systems side, and what capitalism tells us, that if we work hard and or psychology tells us, or right, that we can control things by improving ourselves. And then we have manifestation theory and all these things. Maybe those things do work for some of us if we believe then. Or kotodama in Japanese, kotodama, kototama in Aikido, which is that what you say, then you can manifest that, because words, symbols, beliefs manifest the reality in the physical world. Like we have physical bodies and we can physically feel pain and sense, but is it real? Or is it Memorex? So what if we all just let go of all of that? Then we have real, total, and absolute chaos, where that's the fear, like death. Why don't we fear birth more than death? So that's my talk, which is cheap talk. It's really cheap because I don't charge for it, and YouTube maybe is making something or not. I don't know. Well, they are from their ads, but certainly not making that much off of my talks, and I'm not making anything off of this page. So it's cheap. Thank you.